Hey there, everybody. Welcome back. Thanks for clicking on the video. Make sure to like and subscribe if you haven't already. And we're going to get into 90 Day Fiance Before the 90 Days, Season 6, Episode 12, Field of Dreams. So make sure to let me know what you thought about this episode down in the comments. I thought it was a little, uneventful, lackluster, maybe, a little boring, but that's okay. We're still going to talk about it. So I'm going to go ahead and start off with Gino and Jasmine. They're back in Panama after their little, vacation. And, they found a new way to gross us all out, so gotta give them credit for being creative. This man is out here trimming her nose hairs. It's not that weird to help your partner do that. It is a little weird to film it. So, she says they're back in Panama City after making memories on their weekend getaway. And then, they switch it up. She does his nose hairs. And we're watching this while we're hearing about how they were in such a rough spot before the trip. And now they're making progress. And then she goes ahead and just kisses him again all over his face with that awful lipstick. And yes, it's just everywhere again. Disgusting. It just irritates me. Not irritates me, it makes me cringe every time. So then she tells him, he's the only person she trusts to trim her nose hairs. And, he's like, oh, well, can you breathe better? Just in case we were wondering. And, turns out she can. So there's that. Gino says that the biggest breakthrough for him this weekend was that she opened up about her insecurities and took accountability for her attitude and her reactions. And he's hoping that, she's just willing to try to have a relationship with his family. I love how Jasmine just shows up to the interviews with like a whole new face. Like, we're not going to notice. Like, they don't even address it. They just pretend like she has the same face. It's completely different from when they filmed. So, whatever. And then, Jasmine's unpacking his things for him. And once again, she brings out the little blue pills. And Gino gets all giddy and makes me want to vomit. And she goes ahead and reminds us that their sex life was struggling terribly. But after this trip, he's been able to reach the finishing line each time they're together. And that means a lot for her. So, good for them. He says that their relationship outside the bedroom has a lot to do with their relationship inside the bedroom. So, he just feels hopeful that in the future, they're just going to get better and better. Then we go ahead and skip to the next day. And they're off on a walk. And they're talking about how he just keeps thinking about how great the weekend was. Like, I bet he does. Fulfilled his fantasies. And then he asks her the dumbest question ever. If she thinks she's pregnant. Like, no one knows they're pregnant right after the weekend, my guy. And then he's like, well, 'cause you kind of look like it. Just kidding. Ha ha ha. And I'm thinking, well, maybe she ate the beans, Gino. Give her a break. You should never ask a woman that. Especially 2 days after, like, she might have gotten pregnant. Like, come on, bro. So, he tells us that having a kid is very important to him. And, they're not using protection, so they should talk about it. And, even though she has 2 sons, they've spoken about having their own kid. And we knew that because the first season they were on, he wanted to get her pregnant on that trip. And she was like sneaking the birth control pills. So he also reminds us about that. And she was taking the pills so they could get on common ground before having kids. He tells her, at least they're close to the visa approval, and, she can come to America and have a baby. This man crossed the finish line one time, and now he's hyped to make babies, I guess. Also, Jasmine has never been so quiet in all her life. She tells him that there's like certain aspects that she would love to talk about, and she's going to be honest. She likes the idea of having a baby. Some days, she thinks about it and wants it, but then when it comes to reality, that's what hits her differently. She, has kids and she knows what it takes, and it's a beautiful experience and you love them more than yourself, right? But it's not easy. And, she has a point there. Like, if you don't have a strong relationship, kids do make it worse, and they just add a lot of pressure to a relationship. Kids don't make it worse, the parents do with how they react to the child, I should say. It's never the kid's fault. So, anyway, Gino is so confused because she told him that she wanted a baby. And he feels like her telling him that she doesn't want children could just cause everything they've built to fall apart. And I mean, he was pretty clear that he wanted them. Not that she has to have a kid or is obligated to because he wants them, but he was pretty clear about it from the beginning. And so he's like, what are you trying to tell me? Because he thought that she wanted a baby. And, her question at this moment in their relationship is like, will they be good parents to a kid? She's like, we're getting old and you're planning to retire. And he's like, yeah, but there's an advantage of retiring early and having a kid is like, he doesn't always have to go to work. He can spend time with the kid, take him to school, all the things. And she gets that, but kids are just chaotic. She said, look at her kids. They're older, and she still gets a lot of support from her family. I think what she meant by support is her family raises them for her. She doesn't think she could handle a kid on her own in the U.S. And he's like, well, it's both of us, not just you. And he thinks they could handle just one child. His family would help. She tells us that, Gino has these super high expectations, but it's hard for her to imagine relying on his family when she's not even sure if they like her. And it's like, well, damn, lady, they haven't even met you yet. Give it all a chance. You're already like putting up a wall because you're projecting what they're going to think of you when that's really what you think. You think people think of you. That's how you see yourself. So she also says, in this part I completely understand, is it's going to be hard for her to move to Michigan and then bring her kids with. So to think about, having a baby after she moves is kind of crazy and delusional. And she does think that Gino deserves to have his own kids, but she doesn't know that she's ever going to be at a place to do that. And that scares her. She then asks him, if I told you today that, I didn't want kids, I was 100% sure, would you stay with me and marry me and be happy? And he's like, well, I've told you I want a child, so how am I going to be happy? She's like, oh, so no then. And he's like, yeah, I could survive without a child, but, wouldn't be the happy life I think I would have if I had a child. And she's like, well, he asked her why she hasn't brought this up till now. She just had to get gross on us because she's like, well, first of all, you couldn't finish the job before, and now all of a sudden you can. He's finishing all over the place, I guess. And she was also afraid of him leaving her because of expressing these concerns. He says he's not going to leave her. And she's like, well, you said you won't be happy. And he just thought they were on the same page. Obviously, they're not. Are they ever? He says it's a difficult situation because she's the love of his life. But he doesn't know if he can be complete without having a child. Honestly, my opinion about this is this whole relationship is Jasmine gets everything her way and what she wants. He gets nothing. He makes all the compromises. If he even asks for a little bit of anything, she throws a fit. She's only worried about losing him for his money. And, I did like Jasmine. When I found out they were going to be on this season, I was excited because I liked her. But this whole season, she's done nothing but, like, disgust me, make me want to vomit. And she's, like, really emasculating to this man who's, like, giving her everything. And for people watching it who, like, have never had someone be so nice and giving to them, it's like, okay, lady, calm down. Like, if you're not going to give him a baby, walk away. He wants it. He deserves it. He's, like, a decent guy, right? He wants to help you raise this child. A lot of men don't even want to be involved, at least the ones that I've been in contact with. So I just feel like she's very selfish, and I think these are things everybody knows about her, but that's my only takeaway from this is, like, he gets absolutely nothing. He doesn't get the prenup. She doesn't want to get along with his family. He doesn't, get her to stay in, like, an economically sound apartment. He's not going to get a child she's been promising him for 2 years. It's just, he's not getting nothing. So he leaves us with, he hopes that when she comes to the U.S., she'll change her mind. And I think, everybody knows that's not going to happen. So that was it for Gino and Jasmine this week. Okay, let's move on to the only couple I think has a chance of surviving this season. David and Sheila. So Sheila, David, Amy, and Sheila's son they're riding in a cab. Amy's like, Sheila, have you asked David why he makes those sounds? And she said, like, she used to ask him when they were on video chat, and, like, she'd ask why there was noise. And he would say, what noise? Obviously, he couldn't hear noise. She just thought it was like a sound of the cell phone. But when they, like, met in person, she figured out what it was. And then the producers asked David if he remembers a long time ago Sheila asking him about a grunting noise he makes. And he says, yeah, like, he isn't aware of the noise. He can't hear it, so he isn't aware he's doing it. Said only if he's, like, intentionally trying to yell at someone to get their attention, that's when he can feel he's making a sound. Otherwise, not so much. The son's sitting there, he's like, oh, are we there yet? And, she says it's a far trip. He's excited to swim in the ocean. And, Sheila tells us it's been a long week since her mother had passed. But today, her and David are taking her son to the beach to have a family outing. And it's important because David only has a week there. And despite her being concerned that he can support them financially, she needs to know that they can all get along. Amy tells David for Sheila that it's important for the two of them to bond. And he agrees. She says, he hasn't spent much time with John Rell, and she's also worried that her son thinks David is strange because he's deaf. I mean, like, what made her think that when they all met and not one person had a question for him because he couldn't hear or understand or talk back? So, I think we all knew he thought that David was strange. She tells, David, her son, is shy, so, he needs to bond with him, so he isn't shy anymore. David doesn't know what to ask him. And, in his interview, he says it's important to him to have a relationship with Sheila's son because he does want to propose to her on this trip, and he needs to prove to her he has what it takes to be a good father. I personally think that he should start out trying to get to know him and, like, be a friend. Like, don't put the I have to be a father to this kid pressure on everyone. That's just me. So David asks, like, what sports and games he likes, and he likes basketball and volleyball, and, that's it. David says cool and goes silent. And Amy's like, you got any more questions for this boy? And, he doesn't. David says not really. And this has to be like the easiest money Amy has ever made. Because first she went to the family's house, no one had anything for her to say. And now in the car, she's like asking them, like, please let me translate something, anything. Please, sir. So, he's had a couple years to think of some questions for this kid. That's all he had. So instead, he goes with what he knows, and he grabs his hand to start play the hand slappy game where you try to slap the other person's hand. And it seems to work out though, because they're like all laughing and having fun. And David was concerned with forming a bond with him because he's so shy, but he thought about it, and kids mostly just like to play. So the language barrier isn't a big deal. And like this is how he communicated with his father all those years ago, was through playing. And now, John Rell is warming up to David, and it makes him feel good. They start doing thumb wars. Sheila is just happy they're playing. She lit right up. Finally, they make it to the beach. They go and change, and the beach is so packed looking that it gave me social anxiety. But, it must be a nice place. I'm just not a fan of crowds. So while they're at the beach, David and John Rell start having a splash fight. Kids love a good splash fight. And then they give him his own little interview, and he says, when he first met David, he was nervous, but he's not anymore. And he wants to learn sign language so that he can talk to David. And that's so sweet. And I think at this rate, he's going to learn that before his mama. So they're out there, they're having fun, they're skipping rocks. Sheila's happy David and her son are bonding, even though they can't communicate. She said they're enjoying each other, and they look like a father and son, and that makes her happy. Amy volunteers to take a nice family photo for them. I bet, Sheila's glad Amy's around now, because she's been very helpful. She also says, her mother's death made her realize that she needs to make her and her son's life better. But she has some questions that she needs to ask David about their future. So, after this fun-filled day at the beach, we catch up with them. They're going out to eat. Sheila, asks Amy to ask David if he enjoyed the sea. And he did. And so did her son. David tells him that he enjoyed splashing him and, to see his face when he did it. And, Sheila asks her son if he's happy to be spending time with David. And, he is. Then she tells everyone, that his dad never takes him on trips. They don't talk much. His dad just left him. And I'm like, don't cry, Leslie. Like, oh my gosh. I've had a similar situation. Like, my kid's dad took off a little over 3 years ago, and I haven't seen from him since. Like, I haven't even heard 2 words in over 3 years. And when she said that, I'm like, oh my gosh, don't talk about that in front of the kid, because like that kind of stuff really will trigger my son if I bring it up. Even when I was talking about this to my sister earlier today, and I said what she told David, my son was sitting there and he goes, yeah, my dad left. I'm mad. I'm like, okay, buddy. So some questions and like things like that, I don't believe should be around kids just for their mental health. So, sitting there in front of your kid like, yeah, his dad left him, he doesn't take him anywhere. All that stuff. Awful. Then they're sitting there in an awkward silence. And David tells them like he thinks the 3 of them should bond more. And Sheila, again, with the questions she shouldn't be asking in front of her son. I mean, okay, it's not my job to tell another mother what they should do. But I just feel like this would make the son feel bad, and it puts David on the spot. So she asks him if he's willing to be a second father to him. And, David's a good guy. So he's like, yeah, he's willing to be his father. And, he wants him to know that he's not alone and he completes their family. And I'm just still thinking, like, yikes. Like, at least he had a good answer because they're talking about this in 3 languages. And Sheila, she's happy with that. She has big smiles. Same with her son. David gets an interview and says, he wants to be a father, an involved father. And kids having someone to look up to is important. Then David asks John Rell, like, do you want to move to America? And it's a very quick no from him. No one really knows what to say, but Sheila is a great mom, and she's like, will you miss your friends and your family? And he's like, yes, of course. And David's like, well, you'll have a good time there. There's so many activities, and you can learn English. And the boy looks unimpressed. Sheila tells us, and her son, they've talked about moving to the U.S. with David before. And she knows that he's scared and it's a big change, but she loves David, so hopefully he jumps on board and changes his mind. David tells him, he thinks he'll like the people in Omaha and the school is good and they have sports. And I'm like, my guy, you're trying to sell this to the kid, not the mom. Like, school, every kid's favorite. David says that he understands how he feels being away from everything he knows. It's the same for him. Back when he was a boy, he was sent to the Deaf Academy and was away from his parents and everything he knew. So he can relate to him with that. He hopes that John Rell will be brave enough in the future to come to America. Sheila's being sneaky and she's trying to find out if David is broke and says, well, it's a big decision to bring him to America, and I'm wondering if he has an extra room in his house. And, like, I'm not trying to be rude, but Sheila, your entire house is one room? Like, I'm pretty sure, like, David has plaster and sheetrock and toilet paper and things, running water. Like, he could have the living room. Like, what are you so worried about? So, he says no, his house has one room. But, if they come to America, he'll find a new place. And she's like, I know he's renting an apartment and that's a lot of money over there. And he says, yes, that's real life over there. He says, of course, it's his responsibility to pay for things. And when they get married, it's his responsibility to take care of them. And, he says he doesn't want to worry Sheila, but he can definitely feel the pressure because she has no job. He has 2 jobs. He's paying for everything. But, Sheila and her son are worth it. And he's going to do his best. He doesn't want to let them down. And she, ends it by asking if he promises not to hurt them. He crosses his heart, says he's not going to hurt them. It ends there with them. I could see why Sheila's worried about these things because she lost her mother and she's looking at life differently. But, she has to have the idea that she's going to come here and work and build a life with him, not, I'm going to come here and you're going to support me forever, so can you do that? Like I said, any apartment he would have, I would think, like, would be really nice compared to what she's been living in. And the only reason I bring that up is because she's not even working to, like, fix anything at her home or get out of that situation. She wants someone else to do it, and I can't get down with that because I'm one of those, strong, independent woman types. So that's all we had for Sheila and David. I do really hope that they work out. I like them as a couple. I think these, like, little issues that they're having is just, nerves and normal. And like I said, they're the only couple I could see on this show making it. Let me know what you guys think. Is there another couple that I'm not thinking of that we think's gonna make it? 'Cause Like I said, anyone I could think of, it's a no for me. Okay, guys, I think I need some more religion in my life. So we haven't seen these guys in a while, Misha and Nikola. Let's figure out which holy site we will be visiting today. And, it looks like a beach, and they're fishing. She's following him. She's like, slow down, you're going too fast. And he's like, too fast, I'm walking like a turtle. She's impressed by his bright pink bucket, but not so impressed with all the holes where she's walking in the water, He says that this is after they made up from the big fight before, and he realizes that if he wants this relationship, he's going to have to work on it, and it's worth the fight. He's going to do everything to make that happen. So today he took her to, I'm not even going to try, some beach, and not some beach where they're at, and he's going to teach her how to fish because we all know that the Lord Jesus was a fisherman, and she's also been hearing him talk about fishing and where he fishes and all that for 7 years, and today is the day she gets to see it. He's kind of telling her what to do, and she's like, no, this isn't hard. You don't really do anything. You just sit here. He's like, oh, you think so? He said, lift yours up and see if there's any bait. Sure enough, she lost her bait. He's like, yeah, small fish will eat it and stuff, Then he catches a rock. She makes fun of him. He's trying to explain to her fishing and how to do it, and she just kind of thinks that she knows everything, even though, she's clearly never fished a day in her life, and if she has, it was not in the ocean. He tells her in the interview that he can tell right away if someone knows how to fish. She thinks she knows, but she doesn't, so, I called that. She tells him she could catch a fish. You just throw the thing in the water, and it's not serious. It's fishing, And she sounds like a stuck-up mean girl when she says it. She's like, ugh. So, I was getting stuck-up vibes. She tries to tell him that the fish aren't going to eat by the rocks, and, she'll figure it out by herself. Then she slips and falls. So, karma is real. All of a sudden, she's bleeding, and he's more concerned with getting her Band-Aid and stuff. And she's like, no, I'm fishing. Like, no, you're not fishing, lady. You're slipping all over. You're putting blood in the ocean. You don't know what's going to be attracted to your blood or what's in the water, like parasites. I mean, water is not your friend. The ocean is dangerous. You don't need open wounds. So she's bleeding from both legs, and he's like, we need to go back. She's acting fine. She doesn't want to go back, and he's just concerned. Then she just keeps walking. She's almost falling again. And this is the first time ever I'm on this guy's side, because she is annoying me so bad in this scene. Just watching her attitude, and she's not taking it serious, and it's kind of a joke to her. And for him, it's that's his livelihood, kind of. That's what he does every day. And he's trying to show her. And she's trying to have fun and be lighthearted and all that stuff. But I would get frustrated. And she's like, no, I'm okay. I was a lifeguard. Where were you a lifeguard? In a pool? Not the open ocean, you dummy. Were you a lifeguard at a lake? That is way different. So, excuse me. Nikola gets an interview and says the first time taking a woman to fish with him was awful. 0 stars, he's not going to recommend that. She didn't want to listen to him, and he's like, what was I thinking? He's like, hello, you're in the Mediterranean Sea, not some lake in Minnesota. And, that's exactly right. The ocean does not play. She doesn't even look like she fished in Minnesota. So, that's the last time he's taken her fishing with him, and I can't blame him here. So they get back to the safety of the land, and she's like, yeah, I get to meet your mom and brothers tomorrow. He asks if she's happy, and, she is. She asks him if he's happy, and he's like, yeah, honestly, I'm nervous, especially for you to meet my mom. She said, they have been talking for months about her wanting to meet his family, and so he finally did arrange for her to meet his brothers and mom. She's excited, but also really nervous. They don't know who she is or anything about her, and according to Nikola, they're not going to like her because of her past. And they just make it sound like she was one half of Bonnie and Clyde. Like, she had a divorce. Get over it. Like, she asks his biggest fear, and he says, like, what his mom will think of her. I really don't know how he thought he was just going to get married and whatever, tell his mom, just move to the U.S. after 46 years. Like, he was just going to keep it all a secret till he did it. He's also worried that, they're going to say not to marry her and he should marry a girl from there. But he's like, at least you won't be able to understand because his mom speaks Arabic. She's like, well, are you going to tell me what she says? He says, of course he will. And she's like, well, are you going to tell me the truth? And he's like, he's not going to hide anything from her. But it's going to be hard because he doesn't want to hurt her feelings. Apparently, his mom can say really mean things and be difficult. And she's 70 and set in her ways. She does dream that he'll get married and have his own home and family and a wife, but she never would have expected Misha because she's divorced, American, and not a virgin. So, yikes. They're still on the shore. They're bandaging up her wounds, and he's saying, he hid this relationship for 7 years, so it might be like a heart attack for his mom or like an atomic bomb dropping. But he knows, family means a lot to Misha, and if it goes badly, it's going to be a problem for her. He says, he doesn't want to tell her that she's divorced and has 2 kids because they're going to go crazy on him and not her. Like, okay, no one should ever be asked to hide their children, asshole. Like, what do you mean? I would never not tell someone that I had kids. Are you kidding me? She does say that. She says, she isn't going to hide who she is or lie, period. And she hopes tomorrow that he can be just as proud of her as she is of him. And, she doesn't think he's ashamed of her, but he is sensitive to his culture. And he says it's like for protection. She's like, mine or yours? And he says hers. And she's like, yeah, I don't need protection. He's like, they won't like you, so I protect you. But tomorrow's going to come, and, it will also pass. So he didn't tell anyone about her to protect her. No, he didn't want to face it and hear their opinions because he already knows. So next time we see these 2 crazy kids, Nikola comes out. He's ready. Misha's still on the bed in hair and makeup, and asks him what she should wear because, he looks casual. He tells her to dress like she's going to church, wear your best. So, she's like, oh, dress up a little bit. As if she hasn't been. She has been completely dressed up every time I've seen her. So he's going to help her pick out something anyway. Because today's the day. She's going to meet his family. And she's nervous because of how he made it sound to her. His older brother doesn't know she exists. And his mom and other brother just think that they're friends. And, he's told her they're probably not going to accept her because of her background. But it's important to her that they like her because, their opinions matter to Nikola. They're going through her massive wardrobe and he's checking the time. She's like, why are you checking the time? He just wants to get this day over with. He's nervous. He's been talking to a woman on the phone for years. No one sees her. Suddenly she's here meeting his mom. He tells her it's like an alien coming to Earth. And then he's like, now please get dressed, Misha. He's going to go ahead and wait for her. So then these shady TLC people put 1 hour later. They're in the car. He tells her not to be sad if his mom is rude. And she says she won't. Because she can't help how his mom reacts. He's nervous because he doesn't know what their reaction will be or what they'll say about her. They're traditional. They're expecting him to marry a virgin and someone from the Holy Land. I don't buy that. Like, they're not religious, so why would they care about someone from the Holy Land? And marry a virgin. You're 46 years old, my guy. Like, are you going to marry some young girl? Like, if you want to marry someone your age, chances are they'll be divorced. Anyway, that's a whole topic I probably shouldn't get into. But I'm just saying, like, you're going to be picky. You live in your mom's house and run a Catholic website and fish. Like, what do you have to offer anybody besides, like, insults and Jesus trivia? So, we also learn, and this is no shocker, that, he's never brought a woman home to his mom. He does say that he knows 100% that he wants to marry Misha, but it'll be hard for them, like, if his family doesn't accept her. They get to the home. She has a giant bouquet of flowers, and his mother, Nadia, is sitting there, and Misha greets her with a hug. She does not look 70, I must say. She looks pretty good. She gives her the flowers. She thanks Misha for them. They give her, like, a bag of chocolate and some candies. So they're buttering her up real good to hear the news about the kids and the divorce, I guess. She tells Nikola to tell his mom that those are her favorite candies and chocolates, and she likes to have them at work. And then she, like, sends him off to put these in the fridge. She tells the mom her cooking smells good, and the mom's happy to hear that too. Then the mom and Misha just kind of sit there in silence for a while. While they do that, we get to hear from the mom, and she says again, he's never brought a woman home. So she's really surprised that he was bringing one home to meet her. And she's cute and friendly, but she doesn't know why she's there. Nikola is bringing in water, and she asks him to stay there so he can, translate. And he's like, you don't need to talk to my mom too much. She's like, Nikola, I need to talk to your mom. Like, will you at least tell her who I am to you? And then he gives out a big sigh. And she's like, you need to think about the person who doesn't speak Arabic and needs to talk to her. And then she's like, are your brothers coming? Ever since she got there, I don't know if it's because she's nervous and he's not cooperating with her, but she's been, like, very bossy this whole time in this apartment to him. But it is edited, so I'm sure he was being annoying. And the mom's like, I'm done with this. I can't understand you people. I'm out of here. She goes to finish working on the food. And Misha's like, well, okay, let's go follow her and watch her cook. So they watch the mom make the dwali, which is like something wrapped in grape leaves, I think. And the brothers arrive. They all have a seat. The mom gets food. So far his family is friendly to her. But he says, Middle East people are very hospitable. But as soon as he starts telling them who Misha is and what she is to him, that's all going to fall down. He's hesitant. He feels awkward. Maybe this was a bad idea. So she's like, it's nice to meet his family. And the brother's like, well, maybe you could tell us a little bit about you, because I don't know you. She's like, Nikola, maybe you should tell them. And he's like, no, you can. You speak good English. And she tells him he needs to say it in Arabic so his mama can understand. He says he doesn't want to. He doesn't need to tell people about his private life. And she's like, why are you reacting this way? Like, why do you feel so tense? And he's like, that's just who I am. his brother's like, Nikola, from where do you know her? And, they end it there, of course. So we'll probably start off in the middle of that next week. But I'm glad the brother said something like, dude, this is your family. This is your fiance that you're 100% you want to marry. So, tell them who she is. And then he's going to make her do it. When this whole season, he's been like, I'm the man, I'm the king. You're still under me. But you're not like man enough and ballsy enough to tell them that you're engaged to this woman. Yikes. What do you guys think the family's gonna say? I think the mom's probably not gonna be happy. They set us up for that, so I'm hoping she doesn't hurt Misha's feelings too much, because nobody deserves to have their self-esteem destroyed because they had children. Yikes. Okay, guys, we're going to move on to Statler and Dempsey. It is a chilly morning, February the 15th, over on the farm, the one that Dempsey lives at. And what's even more chilling and chilly are her feelings towards Statler. She's telling us, she's massively hurt over what happened last night. It started out as the most romantic Valentine's Day that she's ever had. And it went downhill real fast. They had a big fallout over Statler talking about meeting up with her ex at the airport and stay in the hotel for the night. And she doesn't even know why Statler would tell her that she was coming to England. She kept all of that from her, and now she thinks, what else is she hiding? And she shouldn't be starting a new chapter with Dempsey if she hasn't closed the old one. She should for sure not be asking to move in with Dempsey. Statler's out there, sleeping on the couch. She got sent to the couch, and they say, hey. Statler asks her if she's going to work. She says she is, and, she asks if she's okay. She says, yeah, she is. Like, okay, I'll see you later. And, Dempsey can't get out of the door and off to work fast enough. Dempsey feels like she's taken in a lot of new information. Things are moving fast, and she just needs to get her head on straight because she doesn't know what to think now. Statler is having her morning cup of joe and telling the producers that what surprised her the most about the conversation was Dempsey thinking they're rushing things. She doesn't feel like they're rushing because they've known each other for months. And she's like, and she was pretty upset about the ex thing. You think, and you didn't even tell her that you considered it, like you told your friend at the sex dessert shop that you took her to when you thought it was funny, and you were all giggling and acting like it was some kind of achievement unlocked. And not only that, you also accused her of cheating in Thailand. But, to Statler, the ex thing wasn't a big deal. She didn't feel like she kept it from her. It just didn't come up. And that's just spoken as a true sneaky sneak, She doesn't think any of those are really good reasons that Dempsey feels this way. And, it just has to be because she's scared. Not because her behavior is terrible, right? She doesn't know where they stand or if they're still in a relationship. So Statler's sitting there. She video calls her friend Natalie. She starts off by telling her how cold it is there. And her friend's like, yeah, well, how is it going? If Statler and Dempsey, are they meshing well? Are they comfortable? Statler says, yeah, things are going well. She tells her about the Valentine's scavenger hunt that ended with the romantic fire. And, how she told Dempsey she loves her, and she said it back. But that's when things turned sour. She told her she wanted to move to England and move in with her. And her friend is like, you asked her or you told her? And Statler's like, yeah, I guess I told her. And, I didn't even see it that way, but this girl obviously knows Statler well enough to know that it wasn't optional. And now when I think about it, it's like, yeah, she did say, my lease is up, so I'm going to move here, basically. her friend points out, that's a lot for one Valentine's Day. Like, even saying I love you is a lot. Adding moving and all that on top of it kind of takes away from the moment. She's like, yeah, but it's me, so I feel it. And I think, why wait? And it's like, Statler, you selfish ass. Like, it's not just about you and how you feel and what you're ready for. So then she tells Natalie that her conversation ended with her ex and how she wanted to meet her and get a hotel. But she didn't tell her that, and now Dempsey doesn't know who Statler is. The friend makes a good point and asks, maybe you just made her feel like one of many options and less special. And she's like, well, when you say it like that, yeah. Like, and Statler does look like she genuinely didn't see it that way. She tells us, she understands that Dempsey is upset even if there's nothing going on with her and her ex. And she says, they message sometimes to see how the other one is doing, but she doesn't have feelings for her. And I just cannot stop thinking about how different this story went, like, when we first heard it. Like, that first episode, we saw Statler, and she was, like, making us all cringe with, like, her talk of all of her conquests and, like, her sex bucket list that she hadn't completed with the airport. Things like that. And it's like, oh, now you're innocent? You just chat once in a while? Give me a break. So, her friend's advice is, live in the moment, be a little more, like, present in the moment, and save the serious talks for later. She's like, I just keep thinking about my lease being up soon and planning their future and, like, the things that need to be done and the decisions. And she's like, well, you don't want to scare her and have her run away. She's like, yeah, I know that my friend thinks I'm moving fast, but her whole life she wanted someone to love her back unconditionally. And that's the problem right there. It doesn't matter who it is, and Dempsey could feel that. Like, Dempsey could literally be anyone who says they love her, and she has a history of this. She needs to unconditionally love herself first, unfortunately, which is the hardest thing to do. But I don't think in life there is much people that are going to love you unconditionally besides, like, your children and your parents and, like, your grandparents, things like that. So anyway, Statler's 33 and wants to get her life started, and she's going to do whatever she has to do to get Dempsey to reconsider what their future looks like. Later, Dempsey gets home. She says she had an all right day. Statler tells us she's been alone home all day, spiraling, thinking, when Dempsey walks through the door, it's going to be over. They have a seat on the couch. Statler asks her how she's feeling. Dempsey's upset about how last night went, and, there's some stuff they need to discuss. Like, when she told her she's going to move in when she comes back. She thinks it's going to be too much for them both. Statler's like, it's not going to be too much for me. Dempsey says, basically what Natalie said, they should be in the moment. They should enjoy each other's presence. And then when Statler goes home, wait a minute, reflect, see how they really feel about how the 2 weeks went. And then make a decision after, they've thought on it for a while. Statler's like, yeah, live in the moment. That's great and all, but, she doesn't want to waste her time. Like, is the relationship going to go anywhere? Like, you've been in person 4 days, lady. Dempsey, of course wants it to go somewhere. Statler's asking her where she wants it to go. If I don't move here, if Statler doesn't move there, they're moving at the pace of a dead snail. Dempsey is like, relationships are gradual things. She's like, yeah, we've been gradually getting to know each other for 7 months. She's like, yeah, and you've come to England, and I find out in the first 4 days you've arranged for your ex to pick you up at the airport. And she's like, I didn't arrange it. She's like, I was in Thailand and, you were going to stay with her. Statler's like, no, I didn't arrange that. And she says, she asked to do that and she told her about Dempsey and it was talked about, but it wasn't going to happen. Dempsey's like, but you never told me. So what else is she, going to find out? I feel like something's up with this story. She's trying to cover her tracks because before she said, her ex knew about Dempsey and now she's like, well, she asked me to meet up with her, but then I told her about you. I don't buy it. Statler says, she's not going to find out anything else. She's 100% in it for Dempsey. She's willing to leave her life and country and comforts, warm water, all of that to be with Dempsey. She doesn't want to go home and then have Dempsey sit on it for a while and then call it off with her. She doesn't want to get hurt in that way again. She says nobody does, but she feels like it hurts more for her because she's adopted. And she doesn't think people realize how much of an effect that has on her relationships because she wants what everyone else has. Like everyone else gets to be loved and accepted. And she wasn't wanted before she was even born. She cries. She says, what was wrong with me? And, that got way off topic. And, I feel like she was trying to manipulate her and make her feel bad. And, no, I'll take you, move in. I was kidding. And not only that, I realized she was adopted. I don't know what that's like. But she was adopted right away when she was born to a family who wanted a little girl. So she was wanted right away. She didn't grow up in the system and foster care. She wasn't little orphan Annie having a hard knock life. That wasn't the case. So also, she's had 33 years to go to therapy about this. Why hasn't she done that? She just wants someone else to feel sorry for her and love her. That's never going to work. You're always going to be disappointed. So that kind of worked because she's crying. Dempsey gives her a hug. She tells us, she thinks Statler wants to be loved and accepted. And that there's nothing wrong with that. And what she said about her being adopted, she's probably fantasized her whole life about what life could have been like with her birth parents. And she's worried that she still has that mindset in relationships. We have to do it now and have the fairy tale now. And she wants it instantly because it's all she ever dreamed of. But Dempsey's the real MVP here because she says that's not a good reason to rush things in their relationship. But, they're hugging. They tell each other they love each other. Statler's like, I guess let's just take it one day at a time, even if it's hard for her. Dempsey still is like, I still want to be with you. And tomorrow she gets to meet her friends. She's like, Dempsey doesn't want anything to change between them, just to take things lower. Statler knows she can be a lot and move fast, but she loves Dempsey, and she feels like when it comes to love, you should lead with your heart and not your brain. And she's still all in, hopes at the end of this she'll change her mind and let her move in. Good news is that, Statler's not banished to the couch anymore. They get to sleep together. They were lonely, not having each other the night before. So, Statler hasn't learned anything. She didn't hear one thing Dempsey said or has asked her to do. She's selfish, and she wants this to go exactly how she wants it, and no other way is acceptable. So she's placating her and manipulating her with tears and telling her about her past trauma to, make her give in to what she wants. And, not healthy. I hope, and I can see that Dempsey's kind of seeing that a little bit, but I just hope that Statler gets some kind of help someday so she doesn't have all these coping mechanisms and manipulative strategies to keep people in her life because she feels that they're necessary to keep people in her life, All right, this one's going to be fun. Make sure to subscribe and like if you're still hanging out with me. I appreciate you. You guys are my favorite people. So we're going to go ahead and talk about Christian and Cleo. They're waking up. She, says they're trying to put their relationship back on track. But everything that happened last night caused a lot of tension. She wants to believe what he said was true, but she keeps, she's keeping her guard up a little bit. Christian wants to know what's on the agenda for the day, and Cleo says they're meeting her friend Evelina for a couples astrology reading. He's like, what? We're doing astrology stuff? She's super excited. He don't seem like it. She says, it'll tell them if they should be together or run away. So I've definitely done my birth chart like this, like what they're going to do, and compared them to guys I've dated, and I've completely ran away from the situation based on what they have said. So whatever this lady has to say, I believe it. However, I don't think that we need the stars to tell us that they need to call it a day on this. She reminds us that because she's autistic, she uses people's star signs as a way to know them, and she takes it very seriously. Like she says, so she's nauseous that she's going to say something to cause them second guess their compatibility. And by us, she means her. Because I guarantee Christian isn't about this life, and nothing this lady is going to say will, change his mind. So he asks her if they're going to be sitting at a table with a crystal ball. She's like, no, but she wishes she had the skills to read one. I'm like, yeah, same. He makes a risky joke, and he doesn't want to say it at first, but he does tell her that the ball would say that Cleo's going to fly off the handle and not give him a chance to explain. And she's like, well, maybe it'll say that he will suddenly change his mind on the fly. And he says he didn't change his mind. It was miscommunication. And, as suspected, Christian isn't looking forward to this. He believes it's a bunch of, hocus pocus or whatever. He doesn't believe that the stars and planets and the time you were born can dictate your personality. But he's going in open-minded. I'm not sure if they're going to cover this, but if you want to look at your birth chart, you can go to Cafe Astrology or type in free birth chart in Google. And then you put the time and the place and the location where you were born. And it'll tell you a lot about yourself. And then you can also put in your partner's birthday, time, and place. And the website will compare the two and tell you the good and challenging aspects of the relationship. I've definitely used it a lot, mostly to look up myself. It's very accurate. So if you were interested in doing that, that's how you do it. She says that she thinks Geminis don't like astrology because they're talked about so badly in astrology, which is kind of true. Geminis are the twin signs, so they're considered kind of two-faced. They have two sides of their personality. So they get kind of a bad rap, but I have a little Gemini in my birth chart, so I think Geminis are cool. I'm actually a Pisces sun, Aries moon, Gemini rising. Those are your big three. So anyways, he says he's born on the same day as Donald Trump, and they don't have the same personality. Then he does an awful impression. I don't even think it's Donald Trump. I don't know who he's doing. Awful. But that's not how it works. It has to do with the day, the time, the year, where you were born, location wise. Has nothing to do with just the day. Anyways, they show up to meet the friend, and she has her laptop out, so I'm guessing she's gonna do exactly what I have mentioned. They tell this lady, today is great, but they did have a rough day yesterday. Christian is like, yeah, a little miscommunication, maybe this can tell us more about that. So she has the chart, and she basically said what I said, but she also says that Cleo also says that she looked into their charts on her own, but it's different to hear it from an expert astrologer. And that's true. Like, the person who's doing this probably can tell you a lot more and look more in depth. But she's saying, I've looked into it and it's different to hear it from an expert. AKA, she didn't like what she saw on the birth chart when she did it herself, and she wants someone else to tell her that that's not true, or to be sure that it is. Because if she did it herself and she liked what it said, she wouldn't want a second opinion. She would be happy with what it said. That's my Detective Leslie skills for the day. I hope you enjoy. The astrologer tells them they're really connected on a subconscious level, and they don't know why they're so pulled to each other. They agree about that. She says, they value communication, but they clash because Christian lacks sensitivity and empathy. And, Cleo is a sensitive water moon. So she can see that there's going to be battles and fights, and there's times that they can see each other as an enemy. And Christian said he has felt like that from her a little bit. And he doesn't want to think of her as an enemy. He wants to think of her as a partner and a companion. And she's like, yeah, I don't want, Cleo doesn't want them to have a love-enemy type relationship. So Cleo's like, well, does this sound like a toxic couple to you? I just want you guys to know that my number one rule in life is don't ask questions you don't really want to know or aren't ready to hear the answers to. And you'll see why, because Christian's starting to get worried because it's starting to sound pretty spot on. And he's like, so what's the prognosis of our relationship? Does it, look like something that will last? And she's like, there's some lessons or situations that they need to work on together. But that doesn't mean they're going to stay together. What a vague general answer. Like, everybody has lessons and things to work on together. Your birth chart could say, this was destined from day one, divinely guided, and you'd still have problems and lessons to learn together. It's the point of a relationship, is to help someone grow and to work through things. Cleo hears this, she just starts crying. And, she says in her interview that it might sound silly, but when Evelina mentions, those things, she just got an image of Christian's WhatsApp profile picture. And she thought about how they've been talking through social media and just how things were perfect. And she had this great feeling of nostalgia of when things were great. She can kind of barely get her words out here. And then she just says that she feels like ever since he arrived, there have been a lot of problems. And she's not ready to deal with the possibility that they won't work out because of those problems. And that's where we leave our girl. Poor thing, crying again. A lot of couples crying on this season. But yeah, so the birth chart thing is cool. Like I said, I think she kind of already knew what it was going to say if she did it on her own. She wanted another opinion. Christian definitely seems like most men who aren't open to the astrology thing or think it's silly, but they go along with it for their girlfriends. He wasn't rude about it, so I got to appreciate that. I don't think that the astrologer said anything that should make her that hysterical. She said, you guys clash, you feel like enemies, you have lessons to learn, but that doesn't mean you're going to work out forever. And I think what she should take from that is we need to work on not doing these things. We want to make this last. So these are highlighted problem areas. Let's focus on them so we get really good at not clashing and communicating and not being enemies. That's all you got to do is flip that stuff to work for you. So maybe I should email her. Okay, guys, it's time for Riley and Violet It has been a little while since we caught up with these two. First thing we see is Riley carrying a giant bouquet of flowers. And he gets to the restaurant and he says he's waiting for a friend. He tells us that 2 days, him and Violet got into a really bad fight. They haven't talked since, but last night he realized he could have handled things differently. So he unblocked and texted her to see if she would meet him. He still wants to make it work with her. Even though, they butt heads, he feels they're compatible. They make each other laugh. He cares for her deeply. But he's just not sure if she's willing to try again. But he feels if they can both take accountability for their roles in what happened, they can get through this stronger. I honestly think she handled it how anyone would handle any kind of ambush. But, I'll tell you this. He made sure that he was there before her this time. And he came with flowers. He should have had 2 bouquets. One for her, one for her mama. But we'll take the one. He does kind of hide them off to the side so she doesn't see them right away. Violet arrives. They both say hi. It's good to see each other. There was no hug, though. He asks her how she's doing. She says she's not doing well. And, he says he knows. She tells us, she unblocked him last night and came here today to meet him because he sent her a message. And she thinks he realizes it was all his fault. They ask her if she thinks, these issues have been resolved. And Violet doesn't know. She says that depends on Riley and not her. But this is definitely his last chance. He starts talking. He gives her a gift. He says it's for peace. He's extending an olive branch to achieve peace between them. She says, she can receive the flowers, but she can't forget all that he did to her. It was terrible. She's like, how could you do that, Riley? He's sorry for his actions. He's embarrassed. He embarrassed himself and her. And he now understands that in her culture, families, friends are not family, period. And friends don't have the right to question her the way that family does. He understands that asking her that was inappropriate. She said that she's not upset that the friend asked her. She's upset that she called her a liar and interrogated her. Violet isn't a criminal. And, that lady isn't a cop. And Riley certainly didn't protect her at all. She said, they kept pushing her and saying, answer her. And how could Riley just trample her like that with another person? She's so disappointed in him. And she's, she starts crying a little. He says, he should have protected her. And he didn't. And he's sorry for that. She receives his apology, but she tells him he isn't sincere enough. Riley's like, okay, so it's not enough. And by the way, is this whole conversation going to be about how I'm wrong and, Violet has no fault in anything? He's like, I'm not trying to start anything. I'm just asking. Can someone come in and give this man a shovel for the hole he's about to dig himself? She's like, oh, you mean I'm wrong? And he's like, I'm asking you, everything was my fault. She says yes. And oh my gosh, his face, I just laughed. He was taken aback by that for sure. But he just says, okay. Then he kind of switches gears. And he's like, well, how can we move forward? Because when he asks her questions, she doesn't want to answer. And he feels hurt like she's being deceitful or hiding things. He's like, I'm not saying that's what you're doing. But because, Riley's willing to answer all of her questions no matter what it is, that's how it makes him feel when she doesn't answer his. She tells him that some stuff he asked her, her English isn't good enough to answer. Which is a lame excuse because she speaks pretty good English from what we've seen. She says, if he wants, they can... He says if, he could write it down and they can translate it. And my first thought was like, wow, the old my English isn't good enough excuse, but maybe, who knows? And he's like, perfect, that's great. And she's like, I don't speak English. And he's like, no, that's great. From now on, if he feels the question is too complicated, he's going to write it out to translate it and give it to her. That seems to be the answer he needed. She tells him, she just wants a man who can love her and care about her and protect her everywhere. And he's like, yeah, you're not asking for a lot. He's there 4 more days and he wants to try to move past it and work on it and earn her respect back. And he's going to protect her. She asks him, if he's going to keep his word. He says he will. So she agrees and she, wants to make one last chance for them. And now she accepts his apology. In his interview, he says, what we're all thinking. He doesn't know if he believes that she can't answer his questions because of the language barrier. That just really seems like an excuse. But he's going to give her the benefit of the doubt. And, he just knows he could have reacted differently with the phone call situation with Tiffany. So then, Violet is like, I'm going to bring you to a Buddhist temple. So they make plans to do that tomorrow. I'm really excited for this. I bet it's going to be beautiful. It's just cool, right? So he tells us that they have a lot to work through, but he's going to put aside his questions and focus on the rest of the time he has with showing her that he can be the man that she wants. Do you guys believe him? He's going to let go of his questions? I doubt it. So next time we see this guy, he's ironing his traditional Vietnamese clothing that Violet had made for him. He's hoping for the best, He doesn't have the energy to argue or the time. He just wants to see if they can work. So he just wants to look pretty and fantastic. That's going to fix everything, if he's pretty. So he holds up the outfit and it does look beautiful. It's like a nice dark blue color with like these fancy circle designs on it. And, once again, Riley is punctual and he's at the temple before Violet. She gets out of the car and she just loves his outfit. She says he looks great. She looks really good too. I also noticed there was like a crowd of people across the street checking them out. I mean, it was more like a family of 6 people. Maybe not a crowd, but they were staring. Anyway, Violet, she's, definitely smitten. She likes his look. They go into the temple. There's just incense burning everywhere. Those nice, like, big, thick ones, too. And there's a guy playing on the gongs and people praying. And it's awesome. And I want to go. So Violet tells Riley that she wants to show him her culture. They make their way to a Buddhist statue and they pray in front of it. She says she brought him there because, she wants them to get along. She needs some inner peace after this long, exhausting fight they have. And this temple is a spiritual place, not just for her, but for everybody in Ho Chi Minh City. She says, when she doesn't feel good, she goes there and she feels more at peace. And, she isn't a Buddhist, but she does admire Buddhism because it teaches us to love and respect each other. So I think that's cool. If she can find a place of peace and, some form of spirituality, not everything needs to have a structure. So I'm cool with that. I would go to this place for the same reasons. Today she wants her and Riley to open themselves up to like that teaching. And, they make their way to another statue. She tells them this is the best Buddha in the place. Because if you pray to him, it might bring you luck and happiness to your world. And she has him kneel down on this little pillow. And all I could think was like, oh no, his bad knee. And she just tells him to pray from his heart. Riley says, the temple is amazing. He can feel like calm in this space. He's at peace. they're walking away, she asks him what he prayed for. And he says that he prayed that he doesn't hurt anybody with his words or decisions. She says she prayed for her family and for her and Riley. They get to this like wall with a bunch of little pink papers hanging on them, and she said it's for people who give money to the temple, and then they can get their name on it and put it on the wall. So, I think they're going to go ahead and do that. Voice over Violet says that a couple days ago she thought that they were just broken up forever, and now she's truly happy that they decided to give it another shot. They go ahead and hang up the paper with their names on it on the wall. And that was probably the cutest moment they've had so far. It might be the only one we get. I'm not sure. But I would probably bet on that. So she goes on to tell us that there's only a few more days. And there's some important things they still need to discuss. And she's really anxious and nervous about those things. She's had an issue with it for a long time, and she doesn't know how to tell him. And then that's all we get at the temple. But we get to see them again because they go out to fly kites. At first, Riley is just terrible trying to get this thing in the air. And she says, kite flying is a popular activity there. She took him to the most popular kite flying place in Vietnam. It's where everyone goes on weekends, and it's a lot of fun. So she wants him to enjoy it and see how much fun she has when she goes. She's smart. She knows how to fly a kite, so they go find another spot, with the wind that they need to get the kite up. And then Riley does say he never flew a kite before. He never flew a kite before in his life. So it's fun for him. And she tells us, she would be happy if they were always like this, but he's not here long and they have a lot to talk about. Most important, if she moves to America, will he take care of her and her family? So Riley's out here, he's living his best life, he's flying the kite, and it's Violet's turn to ask a question. She says, when she comes to the States and lives with him, she's not going to have a job or money. Can he help support her when she comes to his country? He says that he can. She's like, well, how much do you have in your bank account? And how's he going to support her daughters? And her. He's a little shocked or taken aback for a second and focuses back on his kite. But then he says that between savings and investments, he would have $100K in his bank account. He's like, does that amount of money make you feel secure in giving up your career and moving to America? She doesn't know. She's not sure how much money that is or how much life costs in America or any of that. And she's just asking, point blank period, is that enough to support us? He says it's not a lot of money, but he makes broke look really good. I'm like, I think it's a lot of money, sir. I'll tell you, I can't come close to that right now. Later in life, I will. When this works out for me, maybe. He says, his life is simple, but if they move forward and they lived with him, he would have enough to support them. He says that it catches him off guard that when they're having a great time flying a kite, she would bring up finances. Says the guy who ruined their romantic dinner interrogating her about a dating app with his friend. So he says, he will answer her questions. He's an open book, and he hopes that she'll start to be open and honest with him. He says, he knows he was going to put aside the questions. He knows he said it. But there's something he's tried asking her, and he's just not getting any answers. So it's about to go down. They go have a seat after kiting. He asks her if the answers he gave her about his finances was good, if she's comfortable with that. She says she is. He's like, okay, good. You asked me a question. I want to know if I can ask you one. He's like, so when we have a fight and you text my dad a lot of bad things about me, knowing I didn't do that to you. And she's like, we don't talk about the past. He's like, I'm not talking about the past. I'm asking, do you regret it? Maybe now that they're in a good place, maybe she can see that, you know, and they should try to work it out together. She doesn't see how it's her fault. He's like, you know, I didn't ask you if it's your fault. Then she says, you know, no, she doesn't regret it. And he's like, all right, well, that's all. She says when she messaged his dad, they were fighting, that she was very mad, but she only told his dad the truth about him. Oh, that was savage. She said, Riley always bringing up the past makes her feel frustrated and tired. Yeah, like he 2 days ago said he was done with the questions. He made it like through the Buddhist temple. Now that, you know, she asked him one thing that was pretty serious. I mean, if I was going to move to another country with a man, I'd want to know those things. Anybody would. Look, Sheila asked David. It's not that uncommon. Also, I feel like, you know, she doesn't want to be held accountable for things that she's done wrong or, you know, that hurt him. She really avoids that. But then she cracks me up and she tells him his new nickname is King Kill Feelings. He's like, okay. Because, you know, Riley always kills her feelings. And I could see that. He tells us, you know, when she was upset about the phone call at dinner, he apologized because he owned his mistakes. And that's all he wanted from her. He's leaving in a few days and she still can't have a decent conversation with him. She asks, you know, why is he bringing up the past? And he's like, in his interview, he does not say this to her, but he's like, mother effer, you know, because we need to work it out. Honestly, that's my favorite swear word phrase, so I was here for it. You know, she couldn't even say she regretted hurting him, and that's not fair. He doesn't know what to do. I mean, listen, bro, you can walk away or prepare for a lifetime of you being wrong and her never being wrong. And if she is, she's just going to say, we don't talk about the past. I don't see how you don't see that. Yeah, like she's avoidant. She doesn't want to hold accountability. She never thinks she's wrong. And that would frustrate me too. I think this isn't great for either of them. So let me know what you guys thought about that. And, you know, that's the end. We made it through another episode. Thank you guys for sticking it out with me. I will be having the recap review thing of The Other Way coming next. So stick around for that. Keep a lookout. Yeah, I know some things got a little personal in that video, so let me know what you thought about that. I don't need to add those things if they bother you. Just a lot of stuff in these shows like trigger me or I could relate to, or I have, you know, similar situations in my life, and I do enjoy sharing them with you guys, and I like hearing some of yours too. Also, none of those things that I talk about bother me anymore. I've spent like a lot of time in therapy, so I'm good. You don't have to feel bad for us. We're doing great. We're actually thriving as a family over here. So sometimes, you know, blessings in disguise. Anyway, thank you guys again for sticking around. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Also, don't forget to take your deep breaths and like relax your shoulders or something. Get a massage maybe. That sounds nice. So I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.